What's up, MKBHD here. So this is the iPad Pro. This is the M1 iPad. It's the top of the food chain, best iPad there is. And I've been using this thing a lot for the last month or so. And I really like it. And like a lot of other iPad users, it's just really enjoyable to use this iPad, but I still wanted more from it. Because as you probably remember from this review, this thing is way more powerful than any software that's taken advantage of it. Like the M1 chip in here benchmarks higher than the 16-inch MacBook Pro. There's 16 gigs of RAM in this tablet. It's crazy. And so it felt like it's finally time for some big updates to iPadOS. And I wasn't the only one who said this on camera. The iPadOS 15 update that's coming up has got to be a pretty significant change to what we have now in iPadOS 14.5. Like, it's got to be, right?
Maybe, hopefully, this is the year that we see Apple put like real apps in this thing, like Final Cut.
And this is honestly super exciting because that's going to make this thing so incredibly powerful that it really is setting this iPad up to be able to do some really amazing things. Maybe even run Final Cut Pro. That is me crossing my fingers.
Now, we're currently filming this video 2 days before WWDC 2021, where Apple is expected to announce some new features for the iPadOS.
I hope that the extra RAM is indicative of something brewing for WWDC.
Well, you know what else was also once said on video? Expectations are the thief of joy. Meaning we got our hopes up pretty high for all these big changes we wanted to see in the software, but there was almost no way that whatever they announced could live up to what we wanted to see. And so iPadOS 15, it's nice. It's a nice update with some tweaks and UI things, refreshes that make sense on the iPad. But it didn't change the way I use the iPad, and it didn't really even get it much closer at all to actually replacing a computer the way I kind of wanted it to. And I feel like that's kind of just where the iPad is destined to live for the foreseeable future. But let's not let the expectations be the thief of joy, because I've been using this beta, iPadOS 15, for a little bit. Like I said, there's been a developer beta, now there's a public beta. It's really good. There's a lot of good stuff. I'm going to show you the stuff that's made the most difference to me, that I like the most about the iPad. And then I have some thoughts on iPads as a whole. So the biggest change we've all seen by now is you can finally put widgets anywhere on the iPad's home screen. You know, like you could with Android tablets for the last decade. It really shouldn't feel like that big of an upgrade, but it does for the iPads, since they were confined over to the slide over area before, where you could still put them, by the way, but now you just have all this huge canvas to lay them out, and it's so much better. Plus there's also a new bigger widget size, so you can really use some massive widgets. You can have a whole home screen that's just 100% widgets if you want to. But then the other home screen upgrade that the iPad gets is the app library now too, which just shows all of your apps in one place. So of course you can now hide apps from your home screen that you don't want. And it actually feels really natural that it just pops up after your last home screen. So this is a long time coming. I really like this new, essentially, app drawer for the iPad. The big thing that always comes up the most with the iPad, though, is multitasking. Or at least having more than one thing open on the screen at once. It's a huge canvas, but you might not necessarily be multitasking. Sometimes you just need two windows to do one task, like you're taking notes on something or copying and pasting between apps. It's things like that. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily multitasking, but it is going to need window management. So iPads running iPadOS 15 technically handle multiple windows exactly the same as before, but the upgrade here is it's more visible and it's way easier to remember. So they surfaced it by just constantly showing you these three dots up here. Anytime you open an app, there's the three dots up top, and when you tap the three dots, it shows you three simple options: full screen with one app, split screen, or slide over. So if you split screen, you can pick another app to go split screen with, and right away you're half and half, so you can just copy and paste or go back and forth, multitask, or whatever you want to call it, the way you could before. And if you pick slide over, all the same slide over app support still exists as well. I don't use slide over as much as I've seen some other people, but the functionality and the support is still the same. There's a bunch of small, tall, vertical apps and their own carousel. In multitasking view, though, you can also now drag one window right on top of another to create a split screen with them, and then just dive straight into that, which is pretty cool. And if you ever have two apps open and you just want to replace one of them with something different, you just swipe down from the top of that one and you can replace it and get your substitute in. Now, you're not crazy. A lot of this stuff is the same as before. It's the same function as before, but it's just presented more obviously now. And I like that. I really like the dots, actually. It's made everything easier to remember. Now, there are also apps like Safari where you can have multiple instances of the same app open. And so when you open Safari, at the bottom on the new shelf, it shows all of the windows you've got open, each with their own tabs, got their own things happening. And so that to me was the part that felt the most like a computer. Like I all the time I have multiple Safari windows open next to each other, taking notes, especially when I'm writing. But on the iPad, if you want to split screen any one of these Safari apps, you can. So you can tap the Safari icon, and now it's like, oh, did you want to use this one Safari window here, or a split screen of this different Safari window with photos next to it, or whatever other app you have going on next to it? No problem. Now, the other biggest UI change to iPadOS 15 is definitely the Notes app. Now, you might be like me and never really use the Notes app very much because there's other better to-do list apps, there's other better Notes apps, but Notes on this new iPad software is so good that it is honestly tempting for me to use it over some other stuff like Pocket that I use all the time to just jot stuff down or just remember something I need to come back to later. This is really good. So there's a new Quick Notes feature where you drag up from the corner with your finger or the pencil, and straight away you can start writing something down or typing a quick note. And then that gets added to a dedicated Quick Notes section of Apple Notes. But it's a bit deeper than that because you can drag whatever you're doing right into that quick note. So say I'm in Twitter, for example, and I want to remember this tweet. I can literally just drag this tweet right into a note and save it there for later. Write something down about it, whatever you want to do. You can drag a photo from your gallery into a note. It'll just add that photo to the note. Or if I'm on a website, you can swipe up a quick note and immediately add the link you're at, and with the Apple Pencil, you can quickly highlight something on that page. So later, in Quick Notes, when you click on that link, it returns you to the page with that same thing highlighted. How cool is that?
How cool is that?
So all of that, plus the really good handwriting recognition, and obviously it's syncing between this and the Mac and the iPhone and all the stuff that has the Notes app, it's really tempting. I'm gonna keep using Pocket, I think, for all this same stuff, just because it also syncs to my Android phone, and I'll be damned if I have one more plugin into the ecosystem. But yeah, the Notes app now is really good. But then there's some other smaller stuff. Safari for the iPad gets web extensions like the desktop version. So if you go into Safari settings and scroll down to extensions, you can just go load up the section of the store specifically for Safari extensions. I'm sure many more will be added here too when it's out of beta, probably including a dedicated Save to Pocket button. And there's also all the other stuff that's coming to iOS 15 on the iPhone too. Stuff like SharePlay and FaceTime, live text on photos in the gallery, Apple Maps updates, etc. So if you want to look at all that stuff, I'll link my video right below the like button. Love focus modes, of course. Spoiler alert, that's my favorite #1 feature, but there's a bunch of good stuff in iOS 15. And they're also going to be adding that universal control feature that was a super cool demo to control your iPad with a mouse seamlessly from a Mac running macOS Monterey. Oh, and also I want to show you guys this better because I failed you guys in the last video. I thought notification summary wasn't in the last beta, but it is. You just have to turn it on. So to enable it, you go into settings and notifications and then scheduled summary. And then from here, when you turn it on, you can literally choose which apps you want to be looped into notification summaries. So maybe instead of a random Google News notification in the middle of the day buzzing you, you can have that and some others literally just collect and then show up in the summary at the end of the day. Nice. But aside from that, iPadOS is still just how you remember it, which is really fun to use a lot of times, just slightly frustratingly limited sometimes. Also, there's still no weather app, by the way. So there's this huge weather widget, but when you click on it, it just opens Safari and goes to weather.com. You bought dark sky, just make a weather app. Also, there's still no calculator app officially on the iPad. You can have a little widget from the quick settings or the control panel, but yeah, there's no full screen weather app or calculator app in the iPad. But generally, this was the update that we're all talking about and waiting for. And for those of us who were teetering on being able to use our iPad Pro full-time and get rid of any laptop, I don't think iPadOS 15 is the thing that pushes us over the edge. It doesn't really change that. I keep doing this iPad-only challenge for myself, even though I've done it on video before, where I just won't use my laptop for a while and I'll just try to use the iPad for everything. And this update didn't really lengthen the amount of time it took before I got frustrated and had to bring my laptop again, but it did make the time I was using the iPad that much better. So I think the thing to keep in mind here, just the background to all of this, is the iPad's great. It comes from a company that also makes laptops, right? So even though they've got all this big talk and this marketing campaign, what is a computer, all that fun stuff, at the end of the day, this company also makes computers. So if they're gonna keep selling those computers, the iPad basically has to stay firmly in between the iPhone and the Mac. And it's until they prove us wrong, basically, that I feel like that's still gonna be true. They didn't become a $2 trillion company by being bad at business. They're not gonna cannibalize their own products. This is just where the iPad lives. But the one thing I will say that's on the other side of this is I'm reviewing all of this new software on the perspective of someone who really wants to use this full time on a $1,000 iPad Pro. But this software will also be on everyone else's iPads, on all the $329 iPads, in people's homes, in schools, all the iPad Airs, people who aren't replacing their entire computer, or maybe they don't need all that much functionality and they can do everything they want already with a normal iPad. And all those iPads will just get better for this. So that's the iPadOS 15 update. So there you have it. More visible multitasking is my big takeaway, but also just like, here's the iPad, here's what it'll do. It's not really touching this or this. And I enjoy using the iPad, and that's what it comes down to. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. We can talk about it. Either way, talk with you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.